This is where truth and vulnerability are put on the altar. Fear and failures are celebrated as they should be. And we unapologetically peel back all the layers. Welcome to Bare Naked Radio. It's time to get raw, real, and inspired with your host, Dawn Gluskin.
Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Bare Naked Radio. I am your host, Dawn Gluskin, and today you are in for a treat. She is feisty, she is funny, she is full of wisdom and amazing. She's my friend, and you would never believe that she is 72. Pattie Rydlun, welcome to the show. Say hello.
Hi, Dawn. Hi, everybody. I'm so happy to be here today. Thank you.
Yeah, so excited to have you. So if you don't know Pattie yet, she has an unmistakable message around work, business, retirement, and life in general. She believes that you can accomplish your goals with relish at any age. Pattie will tell you about the joys of getting older. It's true. And she will make you laugh with her stories. She discounts, dismisses, and derides those traditional thoughts about being 70, and she does it all with a smile. She's essentially a renegade who obliterates those age-old myths by living with zest, vibrancy, and the overwhelming desire to make a difference. And she does this through her coaching practice, and she shares openly on her daily Facebook lives called Good Morning Renegades. And so excited to have you here. Yay, Pattie.
Yay, Dawn. I'm happy too. It's great.
Yeah. So Pattie and I, we've known each other for a little while now. We've spent some time getting to know each other in a mastermind and a group coaching program, and we've had some really interesting conversations.
Yes, we have.
I'm really excited to have you here.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. So we always kind of start out just getting to know you a little bit so our naked listeners can kind of get an idea of what you're about. And I know that you are so passionate about women stepping into their power and aging powerfully. And I know that you have so many stories, but if you could just give us a little bit of background, like a little peek into your life and how you got here today and how this became your mission.
Okay, so I of course, being 72, have quite a bit of experience. So I was a teacher for 20 years and then got a freelance job writing. And from there, I went into corporate and was in corporate for 20 years. And I left corporate after 20 years. So I was about 62, like maybe 10 years ago, totally. And then, like so many people that are that age, I realized that it was such a missing not to have work, right?
Yeah.
Because I ran a $20 million company with 7 direct reports and would get all the work out and with a smile. And we had a great team wherever I worked. And all of a sudden there was nothing. Right?
Yeah.
I went from whoosh to nothing.
So now what?
Exactly. And I floundered, right? I was like, well, maybe I'll freelance and maybe I'll, go back to teaching for a while and maybe I'll, coach. And then that was what it was. I did freelancing for a while, but I was so committed to helping women really, as you said, and I've said often, to stand in their power, because not only did certain things happen to me, but, to women around me. And so then that was my first thing. I started out with women's life coaching, which evolved into career transition coaching, which evolved to where I am now, that I want women to stand in their power and to age powerfully, that we can do anything we want at any age, whether you're in your 20s, 30s, 70s, 80s, even 90s. So that's what it was. But it was that was probably one of the more difficult career things for me, to stop working and to then find my way. But I'm thrilled to be where I am today.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I know, since you are 72 and you've lived through so much and you've seen so much in your lifetime, and of course now women are stepping into their power like we've never seen before in our history. You can see it women in the workplace. You can see it, women stepping up in politics. You can see the women speaking out and not taking anymore with the women's marches and the Me Too movement and Time's Up. And there's all this stuff going on sort of on the planet where women really are stepping up. So as someone who has seen the progression of time, from how it used to be to how it is now and where we're going in the future, like, what is your take on all that? Like, where we've come from, where we are now, where are we going? Like, what does Pattie see?
Yeah, it's so funny that you're talking about that, because I talked about that yesterday and today, regarding stemming from Women's International Day.
Yeah.
And this morning I just said that, I want this to really take hold and make a difference, because I've seen it almost happen too many times, right? All the way back in the 60s, I was in graduate school and it was this big women's movement. And I remember, and also another great movement against racism. And one of my best friends in graduate school was a Black young woman. And I said, listen, you're way ahead of the game. I said, you are in the right place. I said, all this is going to change and, the world is yours. And then, but you know what? It wasn't. Yeah. So I've seen it too many times. And so when I went to school, when I went to high school, we couldn't even play basketball like you play basketball. We could only bounce the ball twice and then we had to pass it. And
is this just the women? Was that just for
just women? Just women. We couldn't, we were too fragile to play like the boys.
Roll and then pass it to a boy. Like he knows what to do with it. Okay. Got it.
So, all these crazy things. And I want to say that a couple things about this movement, that please make it happen now. I want to be a part of it. I want to see it happen. What do I have? Maybe I have 30 years left, but we have to make it happen. And I am, it's interesting because I'll go out and demonstrate. I want to help people get elected. Whatever it takes, I want to see it happen because we've been on the brink and then we go back. We've been on the brink and then we go back. And the second thing is that about this movement is whatever progress we make, I'm going to get a little teary because it's so important to me. Whatever progress we make going forward now, we're really standing on the shoulders of all the women before us.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Yes. Because it's just building and building.
Yes.
And progress is an interesting thing, to your point, because you're right. We do make progress. We make these big leaps ahead. And then I don't know what happens, if it's complacency, or maybe it's because there needs to be a deeper healing as a collective consciousness, it's really getting to heal the root of the problem. So, right, like women can vote and, there's been, things in the workplace, but we're still not making the same amount of money and we're still not represented in politics. Like the proportions are so disproportionate and there's so much more progress that we can make. Yes. And there's still a lot of healing that needs to be done. The way it's been, what women have, rules we've been put in and what we've put up with and the men too, not that they're to blame because they've learn from society how to treat and how to show up. And there's so much healing. It has to go really deep. So you're right. And it's happening and there's still more work to do.
Yes. And it was so interesting because yesterday when I was at this networking meeting, and I didn't talk about my business or anything, I just talked about, women standing in their power, doing what we can at whatever age. And I was so happy because the reaction from the men that were there was so phenomenally great and so supportive that, I just had to go hug them all because, we need to be unified on that point, and not pulling each other apart. It has to be a working together.
It's not us against that.
Yes,
it's
exactly.
Just not. And it makes sense from an evolutionary standpoint that there needs to be an even ground like there wasn't before. Like,
exactly.
Back in the day, because men, there are biological differences, well, the obvious ones, but then, just men tend to be stronger, right? They're
Right.
born stronger and
Yes.
physically. So back if you go way back in history, like the men had to go out and do the labor. And of course, women bear the children, again, biology. So we can't ignore the biology. And so it makes sense the woman has the children and stays home and takes care of them and all that. But nowadays in the digital world and where we are, where we progressed to, those old paradigms don't make any sense anymore. So we have to catch up with the times, and it's time for equality and all of that stuff. So, but it's still there. It's present, the old ways of being.
Yes. But on that very point, it's important also not to throw out the things that work with going forward, because I can remember years ago always telling women who would come back into the workforce, who would come to me to interview for a job, I would say, listen, be proud of all the skills you have, because when so to all the skills they have running a household, right?
Yeah.
Yes. Maybe the man went to work.
Right.
And I heard a man the other day, and I'm going to forget. I'm so sorry. I can't remember his name because, he would be thrilled if I mentioned his name. But he made the point, which was so great. He said, when I cook dinner, I cook dinner. He said, that's it. I have everything in front of me. He said, when my wife cooks dinner, she makes sure the kids are doing their homework. She answers any phone call. And so he named like 5 or 6 things. And I was like, yes, that's what we do. We are such task-oriented people and so organized and so skilled. So I don't want us to throw that out because we have that.
Yeah. So it's like what I'm hearing in there is still celebrate our differences and acknowledge our differences. And, women are the nurturers and men are strong. And men can also nurture and women can be strong. Like it doesn't have to be in a box.
Exactly.
Right? But still celebrate what makes you different and don't let it put you in a box. Like,
yes.
That's really what the conversation is.
Yes. And to remember how many skills that you actually have, to really stress that.
Yeah. And then you see a lot of men stepping up too. And sometimes the woman goes to work and runs a business or whatever, and the man stays home and takes care of it. And it's beautiful. And they can do an incredible job, and hooray for them for getting themselves out of that box. And
and I've seen that more and more. I would say probably the last 20 years that I was in corporate, and even now I hear it more and more, but how often, the woman is the person who goes to work. And I remember one of my executive editors, we hired her, and her husband was a stay-at-home dad, and she did all the work. So it's good to see, because it's a better sharing, I think, and not, like you say, those boxes, those stereotypical roles that you're supposed to take. I think they're still around, but I think, like you're saying, we got to get out of those boxes.
Yeah. And I agree completely. And we also have to look at from a place of like encouragement and how can we grow and what's the best for the planet, what's the best for our family, and look at it from that lens. And sometimes there's a lot of anger out there, which I get, but, and sometimes quote unquote feminists get a bad name because like, why are you hate men and why are you so angry? I love men and I'm not angry. And I would say I'm a feminist because I think women should have equal rights, but I do get why there's that anger out there. I'm not saying it's healthy or it's really helping, but I get it because women have been treated a certain way for such a long time, even in the workplace, and getting constantly harassed and just, and it just becomes like a way of being, like you just kind of deal with it and accept it. And we're kind of like pissed off, like, I'm tired of it. I'm not taking your shit anymore. Right. So that's out there too. And I think once we move past that is when the real progress will start to take place.
I agree. And part of me wonders whether it can really ever be, be done with. I always, for now, I think there'll still be some, vestiges of that hanging on. Right. And what's interesting for me is that I really left because of how women were, stepped over for left corporate because they were stepped over for promotions. They, I could tell you a story about a man in this company. He came in every morning with his New York Times, closed his door, read the paper, and then he got promoted to an even higher position.
Wow.
So it's a little difficult, and there was nothing that could be done about it.
Right.
It's those kinds of things which I was like, that's why I'm going to be a coach. I'm going to help women. I'm done with this. And so I still am, obviously passionate about that. And then little, all this other stuff with the Me Too movement. I mean, that was, it's some things were just, I was told and other women were told, well, that's how it is. Not even blatant,
right.
Nothing so blatant, but
just deal with it. That's how it is.
Mm-hmm.
Just boys being boys, or
right, exactly, which should not be,
No,
So.
and I mean, and that movement is so powerful. And of course, that's what on Bare Naked, what we're all about, being raw and real and vulnerable. And all these women that are stepping up, and these wounds that they have been holding on to for lifetimes, for decades, all that pain, and it's very healing that it's coming to the surface. And now people get it. And I think men are starting to get it because they didn't understand before, because they too got that underlying message. That's just how it is. And like, you get a pat on the back as a man for when you act this way, and like, good job. And so it's all, I love that it's all coming to the surface, because you have to feel it to heal it. And it's out there, and it's messy right now, but I do see progress, and it's beautiful, and I love it. And I love that you're seeing it in your lifetime. Like you said, like, I want to see it, and it's happening, and it's going to be a continued evolution. There's always deeper, we can go deeper, but I'm really, really excited about our future, our millennials, our children, how they're stepping up and showing up. And I think the future is bright. Really do.
Yes. I think for the first time, because I was really confident in 1967, but all these years I was like, okay, let's see if it sticks. And I do feel it's different this time. I do feel that the openness and the younger generations, along with the old, like this multi-generational push, to me is phenomenal. That we're all working together, and with men who get it. And I had a really couple good male friends in the business, and I didn't tell a lot of people, but I was let go from one of my jobs, and I was mortified, and of course got another job right away. And this was before I ran the $20 million company and was a president, and then before that a vice president, and then a president. But so I was talking to this friend of mine, and I was telling him this story, and I said, oh yeah, we had a meeting, and this guy put his hands on my shoulders as we're leaving, and I turned around and I said to him, you put your hands on my shoulder again, my boyfriend's a lawyer, and I'll be after you. And so my friend, who's a guy, he looks at me and he goes, and you wondered why you were let go a couple months later? And I was like, oh, I never made the connection, So I mean, those little, I don't want to call them little, but those things happened. And like we were saying before, it's almost like it was, just accepted. That's how it goes.
And I'm assuming too, like your reaction to that man wasn't just about him, but it was probably about all the other ones before him. And you were finally in a position of power where you could be like, I'm not taking it anymore.
Right.
Poor guy.
So anyway, but those, and so what makes me think when all this news from women has, come out, and I think about myself, and I'm certainly, not on such a level where some women were so harassed and so, assaulted, but I think that this behavior is still so pervasive. I think it's changing, but much more than I think we could ever imagine.
Yeah, and so much of it has been brought to the surface, which I know a lot of people are angry about. And I look at it a little bit differently. So of course we have our president, President Trump, love him or hate him. I'm not, he's here to cause a shift on this planet. I really do believe that. His way of being, while clearly I'm not a fan of his behavior, I'll just put that out there, at all.
Ditto.
let's just put that out there.
Yeah.
However, the way he's behaving it's bringing the spotlight on this, and people are standing up and saying this is not okay, and they're shining the spotlight, and you have to bring light to the darkness to heal it. So I feel like he's stepping up and playing a role. His role is the villain, depending on, I guess what quote unquote what side you're on, but
Right.
serving a role, I think, as on a planetary level, as a collective consciousness level, he's drawing attention to the way things have always been. The people that have been in the closet about it are being more vocal. And then the opposing side is like, no, we're not taking this crap anymore.
Yes.
And
yes.
that's why you see what's happening. And you got to kind of get people pissed off into action, I guess, because we become so complacent. And that's probably to your point of why there was movement in the 60s, and it was probably like, okay, we made some progress. Let's just chill now and hang out.
Yes.
And it's like now people are like feeling it again.
Yeah. Well, I believe that for change to happen, I kind of make the analogy to a pendulum where it's swinging back and forth, and that it's got to go to the extreme and then it'll come and settle in the middle. Do you know what I mean? When everything settles down. But I think we always need to, go on that side of really, whether it's, having anger about the situation or, fed upness about the situation, whatever it is, then that pendulum's got to swing all the way up. And I just want it to come back to the center, that it's everything has changed for the better. So.
Yeah. And I do see it. I see it and I feel it, and I do see progress being made, and we still have work to do.
Yes. Yes.
But and I have 2 young daughters, a 10-year-old and a 5-year-old. And so for the future for them, and I'm so hopeful and that they don't have to deal with a lot of stuff that I've had to, and that you've had to, and the generations before us. And, it's already changed so much. Like if I might think about like my grandmother and great grandmother and all the stuff they had to deal with, we have progressed, and there's work to do. And, it just,
Yes. And I think about my I don't have any children, but I have, 2 grand stepdaughters, and I have grand nieces. And so I worry about them. The oldest one is 15, and I want her to really, I want everything to be solved for them before they step up and into the world,
Yeah.
But it is different already. So that's a good thing. So it's a good thing. But I also want them to, I think it's really important that the history of it all, that they remember. I mean, I tell them all the time, like things were different, you're very lucky about where you are, and then, you can make even better changes for women. So
yeah. Absolutely. And so, and I know you've got an amazing book in you too. We've talked about this before, just talking about all the stuff you've seen. And I think whenever it gets published, it's going to be a real gem just to see the world through your eyes, and what, the progress we made as a woman that's risen up the corporate ladder and has, seen all the changes in the women's movement, and you're still active in it now, like you said. So that's a really interesting and fun perspective. That you have. So on Bare Naked Radio, we love to talk about fears and failures and heartache and all that juicy stuff that sometimes people don't like to talk about. We like to sweep it under the rug, but I think there's also something beautiful about bringing it out into the open, because people can hear your stories and are like, oh my God, you too? It's not just me. I'm not suffering alone. And also to hear how we overcome our life obstacles. It's something inspiring. So you told me before the show, you don't get to be 72 without heartache and failure.
Right.
So what is coming up for you? Like something you've overcome, an obstacle, a failure, a fear, something that you, some heartache you've had in your life, and how you've transformed through it or survived and thrived afterwards.
Well, I could tell you there's some things, I have to be honest, I've never even shared, but I would say that, like you and I have talked about, you definitely, just getting to 70 or 75 or whatever it is, you accrue, whether you want to or not, so much experience and so much valuable information. And so it's easier for me to even, tell my nephew who's working 16 hours a day, which I did for a year, and then I was physically ill, that, you should not do that to yourself. But, sometimes when you speak to younger people, they're like, oh, yeah, I can listen, but this
Right.
is different. This is
They
different.
almost have to make their own mistakes. Yeah.
Yes, they have
Sometimes.
to. I'm
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
okay, go for it. And I got married at a young age, and that's probably one of the most traumatic things that happened to me, because it was not to a person who turned out not to be a good person. And I've never spoken about it, but it was such a traumatic thing for me, because it was abuse, physical and emotional. And I'm one of the lucky ones, because I had a family who was so supportive, who actually, would say things like, I'm praying for you to leave, we're here for you. And, when I was steeped in my faith, and that was I said, how can I do this? I was born and raised Catholic.
Right. Me too.
And so
I get it.
I said, oh
You
my
stay
gosh,
married forever. It's a
Yeah.
sin, all that. Yep.
Yeah. But I had a very wise father who said to me, I'm your father and I would never hurt you. Do you think God wants you to be in a situation where you're hurt? And so,
Smart
I mean,
man.
that was it for me. I got it,
Yeah.
but when I see, I help by giving donations of money, because it's still, after all these years, it's still a difficult thing for me to hear about and see.
Yeah.
I'm generous that way, but I think that the older I get, it's only taken me 50 years, to not to maybe 45 or something, but I just think it's I don't know how to change that situation, as far as giving people the support that I had, some having that loving family that's like, no, don't stay in that, you get out. And whereas, I dated a man years ago after this happened, and I knew him as a friend for about 5 years, and then we started to date, and we were talking about marriage, and I had to say to him, I have something to tell you. And here's what we don't know about ourselves, and which gives me, some people will privately, now it'll be out there, but will privately ask me to talk to some people they know. But here's the thing. If you go through that, and you can always survive and make yourself move on. And someone gave me really good advice. They said, embrace what happened to you. And I use that in every aspect of my life, whether it's embracing the business not going well, it's embracing a career change. But I had to embrace that whole situation that happened to me, and then I could move on, And so when I was dating this fella, I told him I had to tell him something, and I told him, and he said, oh my gosh, Pattie, this is what you went through. And I go, so here's the key operative sentence. I said, well, it wasn't as bad as what other women go through. And it took him saying to me, do you get that you really are an abused woman if you can say that sentence? And that's it. It's that self-knowledge that's so important, because I was like, oh, he's right. And so I stopped saying that, because it was just such an aha moment for me. So, in that respect, so yes, I'm embracing everything that happened to me. And I'm also, I think you in life, you just have to be open to, you never know where that one person is going to say the right thing to you to change your life for the better, show you an insight, to say, this is so, and you get that aha moment. But, you really have to be open to it,
and I think, like, people show up in our lives. And
yes.
if you're familiar with, which one is that? Course in Miracles, they call them spiritual relationships. And it's when people come up in your life to teach you something or reflect something to you. And it happens, if you're open to it. We probably have those encounters every
Yes.
day or
Mm-hmm.
fairly often. But there were so many gems in what you said. And because Patty, the way I see you, you're just this woman of incredible strength and independence and just fun and feisty. You're not taking anyone's crap. And I'm like, yes, I love you. And in your history, you were not that. You were,
Right.
someone that stayed in a relationship and didn't know the way out and
Mm-hmm.
putting up with things no one should ever have to put up with. But it's just for anyone else that's in some kind of struggle or in that kind of situation, like you can get to the other side of it. And not only can you get to the other side of it, but you can find like superpowers once
Yes.
you're like healed from it and once you're away from it. It really gives you your strength. We often talk about turning your mess into your message or transmuting your pain into your power. And you're such a beautiful example of that. So thank you for sharing and being so open with us today.
Yes. Well, it's interesting. It's only taken me a few years, but,
Hey,
but,
takes how
I
long it
do
takes.
exactly. But I want other, especially women to know that, anything is, and you can always surmount all these things that happen to you, and it just we all have that inner strength within us,
Yeah.
and and when you need it, it's
Yes, it
always
shows
there.
up.
It's always there.
And I know when you're in it, sometimes it doesn't feel like it.
Correct.
It's like, oh,
Yes.
that's easy for you to say, but I'm in it. And it's like, it's so hard, but
Believe me, I was in it. I
yeah,
was
we've
in
all
it.
been in it. Like our its are all different, but we've all been in our version of it. And it's like,
Yeah.
why does the universe hate me? Like,
Yeah.
what did I do to
Oh my
deserve
gosh.
this?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
all
Or
that.
how can I used to think I was living in a movie, like this only
Mm,
happens in the
right.
movies,
How did my life turn into this? Yeah.
Right.
But
But
if you just take a step at a time, move forward,
yes.
and that was you reaching out to the family and then
Mm-hmm,
the next step and the next step. And then before you know it, just keep
yes.
stepping. And then you're looking back in the rear view and it's all behind you. So just get into action, get moving.
Yes. And
Yeah.
what I like to tell people too is it's not like you're going to make this change, whether it's, anything, personal and emotional or career wise or even age wise or whatever. It's not like you make this decision and then it's like, oh, I just feel so sunshiny. It's like all
Yeah.
of a
It's a
sudden,
process.
you take a day, and all of a sudden you realize like, wow, I didn't think about that today. And it's like this
Yeah.
little butterfly
You
on your
start
shoulder,
noticing.
so
Yeah.
gentle, and that you realize you're at peace. And I think
Yes.
that's the goal, like that we have
Yeah.
peace in our hearts and our mind and our spirit.
And I
So,
love that you say that because we all want that instant
yeah,
gratification.
no,
Let me just wave
doesn't
my
happen.
magic wand and just, but no, you have to get through it. You have to like trudge your way through the mud and like,
Yeah.
oh, this hurts.
Yeah.
But then
Yeah.
like one
But
day,
you know what?
oh,
All those
scary.
things I like to tell people, we're like fine pieces of silver,
Mhm.
and it gets nicked and then you polish it and it
Mhm.
gets like black and you have to polish it. But
Yeah.
all of those things, contribute to this beautiful patina.
Yeah.
And that's how I kind of look at us. All the things that happen to us,
Yes.
we take them and they make us fuller and richer and deeper
Mhm.
and more beautiful.
That is beautiful. Well, Patty, I absolutely adore you and I could like talk to you all day. And like the time always goes by so fast on the show. I'm like, oh no, it's time already. So we're
Oh my goodness, yes.
I know. It's like that. I'm like, talk all day. But it's to the time of the show where we get to promote you. So if you are loving on Patty, I'm going to let her tell you what she's up to and where you can find her on social media and how you can connect with her.
Okay, great. So my website is Pattie Rydlun. It's PattieRydlun.com. And you can hop on there. I have some stuff about habits and whatever. You put your email in, but I hope you go there because I am writing 50 ways to age like a renegade. It's a little download that I'm going to offer for free. And then, of course, I'll keep you posted on my book, which is going to be done by the end of the year and out there. And also, I would love it if you would join me on Facebook Live because these are some of I talk about business, I talk about life, I talk about getting older, and that you can be a renegade at any age. I'm on Facebook, Twitter. It's all Pattie Rydlun, Pattie Rydlun, Pattie Rydlun. And Instagram. I'm on Instagram as well. So thank you so much, Dawn, for
Oh
this
my gosh,
opportunity
thank you.
to talk and to tell you about where I'm at. So thank you.
Yes. And of course, you can always go to barenakedradio.com and click on
great.
Pattie's show, and then all her links and everything will be there to make it nice and easy for you. So, Pattie, thank you so much. You know, I adore you and your fun, feisty energy. And I'm like, that's me when I'm 70. I'm going to be like,
that's
Pattie.
you now. You're wonderful. Thank you so much. I love you too.
I love you. Thanks so much.
Okay, bye.
Thank you for listening to Bare Naked Radio. We invite you to join us in the Naked Soul Tribe on Facebook and sound off about this episode. If you enjoyed the show, please rate and recommend on iTunes, Overcast, or wherever you get your podcasts. And make sure you connect with your host at Dawn Gluskin on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. All show notes and links are accessible on barenakedradio.com.